schöne Adiaphora.
Aperture is on automatic.
Ah, it's automatic.
I put it back to manual. Starts getting suddenly like that. Otherwise it goes pink.
I have one more.
Already?
Yeah, but I don't use like 2 years since 2 years or 3 years.
But it's good.
Yeah.
It still works for me.
And during the night, you see something,
I put
some rockets.
yeah, the images. So what I do is I just keep a wide shot, something like that.
And did you go to investigate it?
This morning I went, and oh no, this morning in the morning there's no one.
What time?
6 to 7. So that's why I'm thinking maybe.
It's always been an enemy.
Yeah, so I think maybe from, let's say, 7 to 11. You can ask. Yeah. So, yeah, keep it like that. Yeah, proceed at night. Yeah. If they want it, if they don't want it, I just would leave the tripod there. And also, because then you could see a little bit more there. Yesterday, because there were flares the other night, and I could only see the flares. So, yeah.
What is this? Is this solar panel?
You are just now joining me. Hello, hello, hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. Some of this, I don't really understand what is happening with this particular image and why they seem to have the camera settings to where the image is so dark. But that's, essentially all we can see right now. So, them, I guess. I want to check something. I'm wanting to check if I'm sharing a tab or if I'm... My tabs are being weird today. Normally, just because I have the screen smaller, it doesn't look the way that it's looking, but okay, whatever. But you've been able to hear, even now, there's been some booms on here. The bombing is continuing, and at some point, we are supposed to get some news. Some news on the Speaker of the House. I'm gonna get Twitter pulled up here. See if Matt Gaetz has tweeted anything yet today. No. That's Google Speaker of the House. Supposedly, Byron Donalds is promising to release all January 6th footage if he is elected Speaker of the House. I think that they fixed that so that it's not as dark. At least it's not as dark on my screen. I don't know if it's that dark on your guys' screen. Anyway. So that, I suppose, would end up being a win for Donald's. A win that way if he agreed to do that. If he agreed to release the footage. Just saw that tweeted by Benny Johnson. That was 13 hours ago. Trying to see if there's been any updates here. And what time they plan to do what. I know that if you go to cspan.org and you look at their schedule for what they're supposed to be showing today, the time kind of keeps changing. Was at noon. Now they're showing it as being 12:14 p.m. And it's going to the what they're showing. Show the page here. How long it's supposed to last keeps changing. So that kind of tells me that maybe they're expecting a vote. So this time right here, this right here will probably change as well. So, assuming the closer that it gets to 12 noon, we'll have an update on where things stand. But for now, they kind of just have us in this perpetual unfortunate waiting game. It really sucks. Can get some updates here on what is the latest on the war in Israel. 1 minute ago, OSINT Defender tweeted, a joint statement has been released by the offices of Israel Prime Minister Netanyahu. So let's see. What exactly is going on with that? Alright, so it's a joint statement between Minister Netanyahu, Defense Minister Gallant, and IDF spokesman Hagari, stating there is complete and mutual trust with a clear unity of purpose between them, and that they are working in close and full cooperation around the clock to lead the state of Israel to a total victory of Hamas. So there's that right there. That's one of the most recent updates. Aleph X on Twitter has reported Al Muhaba Tower in Abrod Street has been targeted after evacuation following the roof knocking. And that was it's 11:26 now. You know, you hear some berms, and that was posted at 11:05. So that was 30 minutes ago. That was somewhere in western Gaza. Hamas is saying, again from Aleph X on Twitter, Hamas is saying over 1,500 people are missing under rubble in Gaza. It's hard to say whether or not that's true or whether it isn't. But it's not out of the realm of possibility. If you have seen some of the images and some of the live streams of what the area looks like, this view right here isn't really a very good representative, but I mean, there are a lot of things that are just, you know, it's just rubble. "48 minutes ago, Fatech News reported Israeli UAV strike reported towards a target in Sheba Farms, southern Lebanon. Clashes continue in the border area with regular ATGM fire and counter-artillery." There is an update here from Times of Israel. Let's take a look at that. So I'm going to read this article here for you, and I'm just going to share it briefly. It's kind of the easiest way to do it. That might be too much. The Israel Defense Force believes that in order to obtain the objectives of the war against the Hamas laid out by government officials, the military must begin its ground invasion and the Gaza Strip sooner rather than later, the Times of Israel has learned. It also says this war on Hamas is aimed to destroy the terrorist group infrastructure and has vowed to eliminate the entire organization. After 16 days of airstrike, the IDF has told the government that it is fully prepared for a ground offensive in the Gaza Strip, and it believes it can achieve the goals set out for it, even at the risk of heavy casualties to soldiers, and amid repeated attacks by Hezbollah in the north, the Times of Israel learned. So the army needs to move its focus to the north instead of Gaza. It is confident that it would pivot within just a few days. The IDF has already heavily bolstered the Lebanon border, but most forces remain near Gaza ahead of the ground offensive. Regarding the 222 confirmed hostages held by Hamas and other terror groups in the Gaza Strip, the military is preparing for the possibility of rescue operations amid the ground offensive, according to information seen by the Times of Israel. The military fears a further hostage release by Hamas could lead to political issue to delay ground incursion or even hold it in midway. On Friday night, Hamas released an American mother and daughter, which, according to reports, led to their... Stop! Let me read the dang thing. Military reveals that on Friday night, after they released those hostages, still the military believes that ground offensive may actually pressure Hamas to release further hostages. The military is looking to the government to make a decision soon regarding the ground offensive, as the forces stationed by the border can only remain in a heightened state of readiness for so long. The Israeli Air Force has so far carried out strikes against more than 10,000 targets in Gaza belonging to Hamas and other terror groups, according to the information. Strikes in recent days have focused on removing potential threats to ground forces, including sniper and missile positions. But here's the really kind of thing that is crazy to me, is despite all the targets that they hit, despite all of that, they continue to be able to launch missiles. The number that we've seen has reduced dramatically, but still, man. It's like, it's kind of crazy. Ocean Defender posted within the last hour that exchanges of fire utilizing anti-tank guided missiles and artillery are being reported in northern Israel and southern Lebanon. So the few booms that we might be hearing on screen, and if you see any flashes, probably has something to do with that. This is the Gaza border. This is also somewhere Gaza border. And for some reason, Fox News didn't do a very good job of really specifying where in Israel this is a live view of. Oh, we have some kind of... Ooh. I think we have a possible launch from Gaza showing up on screen right there. Wonder what that was. Well, I don't know. It never... I don't know what that was. This one doesn't have any sound. This one hasn't died. This is the only one I have with sound right now. That light was kind of weird. I don't know what that was. It never got far off the ground, whatever it was. Well, Melissa Wise, 4 hours ago. The Israeli Defense Force just dropped a press briefing in which body cam, CCTV, and phone footage from the October 7th attacks were shared for 43 minutes. 43 minutes, people, is what she's saying here. The sounds and videos of gunshots and unedited murder were punctuated by gasps and sobs for adults. It's sad. Lara Seligman, she's covering the Pentagon for Politico, and has had different bylines and different news. But she tweeted over an hour ago, Justin, there was another attack on U.S. troops in Syria early this morning at 0300 Eastern, according to DoD officials. No injuries. Several hosted accounts I follow are confirming that there continues to be alerts from rockets fired from within Gaza. And we can pull it up here. Despite all the bombing and all the targets that they've hit, as you can see, today they had 40. Yesterday there was 98. But at one point they were averaging 423 a day. And that has dramatically reduced. The total during this conflict has been over 7,000. So let's see here. So as you can see, they may break this number this year. It is just, wow. And 2014 was the worst that they'd ever had since they started keeping track, apparently. Trying to remember what all was going on in 2014, but for some reason in 2015 it's the lowest. And then it ramped up in 2016, and for some reason 2020 was the lowest. It was just kind of weird how the numbers have cycled out and how it's evolved. It's interesting. Let's see, C-SPAN has updated their schedule. nope, they still have a U.S. House of Representatives meeting at 12:14 p.m. Hang on. Oh, Fox News has ended their coverage there. So we gotta find something different. Let's see what we can find here. Ooh. Starting to see some flashes. Oh, that's something I've never seen before. That's kind of different. Okay. These do have sound, I think, but they're just not very loud. Which really isn't such a bad thing, because in the past we've gotten pretty much our ears blown out, so can't really complain too much. According to Aurora Intel on Twitter, this was 7 hours ago. Last night the bombardment was pretty intense. Supposedly reports across Gaza this morning of hundreds killed and injured in last night's intense airstrikes across the whole of Gaza. 55 reportedly killed in one airstrike in the Rafah, I think it's Rafah area. And it's really hard to tell if it's true. It's perfectly possible. They've tried to get as many people to evacuate to the north as they possibly can. Maybe it's just to the south. Anyway, they wanted them to evacuate. And supposedly Hamas has been telling them not to, won't let them, stuff like that. We might never really know the truth of just how many people have actually been killed on the ground in these strikes. We may never know the truth of that. That's a fighter jet, not a UAV. That sounded like machine gun fire. Almost. That's right here. Unless there's a flash, it's so dark where this independent reporter is at, you can't see anything. There was a vehicle that looks like went past on a road. That sounded like more artillery fighter. That's interesting. He's actually talking to people on his thing. Let's see what he's saying.
Next trip could be Taiwan. I don't know. I think a Taiwan invasion is unlikely, just because how that would actually unfold as well for China. I don't believe it's in their interest to do it militarily. I think maybe over a amount of time, but I just don't know. But if you're wondering why it is dark because Gaza has no lights on. But you will see a number of strikes that will light up the sky, as well as a heap of gunfire. And we saw, just as you guys jumped in this stream, right at the very beginning, like just as went live, we saw a tank engaging some targets in the right, bloody way, in the left as well. Unpopular take, I think China can beat the West in a regional war. It depends where, but as far as a full-scale war, just no. Like China has, it's one country where the West is multiple different countries, multiple different theaters, so much more stuff. You actually combine what like NATO has. But China is unbelievably powerful. It is definitely a big threat. The biggest threat China has is the intelligence gathering they have. Is the intelligence that China has. I've heard things that they gather more intelligence than all the other intelligence agencies like combined. So that is difficult as well. And time and money. They'll start buying stuff and can go from there. When did you realise you're the actual god of streaming? Bro, about 2 weeks ago, it's my first ever fucking live stream. I'm still shit at it, but I enjoy it. I get to talk to you guys, speak what's going on. At one point, we're even doing like some fucking philosophy last night as well. China is still unbelievably reliant. Who brought that point up? Yi Luo Ho. China is incredibly reliant on the West. That if the West stopped buying all their stuff, stopped exporting into China, it'd be very, very bad. Like, think of the restrictions we put on Russia and how that's affected the economy. Imagine how much worse that would be for China. Someone asked, is Pestilly in the same unit as you? Not only the same unit, me and Pestilly were in the same squad. So we're in the same 4-man little bloody thing as well. There's no video feed. There is video feed. It's just dark. You're just going to have to wait because we're overlooking where the strikes are going to be. So we'll start seeing it line up a little bit. Have you been to Ukraine yet? Yes. Spent about 7 or 8 months in Ukraine last year. I wish the US would stop buying China stuff. Well, you could stop buying Chinese stuff, but we all know we're not going to, because if I go and buy forks from the fucking supermarket, from the Kmart, if I buy Australian-made ones, or American-made ones, they're going to cost me $100. If I buy a Chinese-made one, they'll cost me $3. So, it's all easy to say, like, we're going to stop, but, if you need to buy, I don't know, if you're going to buy a camera tripod or a little phone tripod, are you really going to spend $300? Any snacks? I didn't bring any snacks. It's bloody annoying. I know nothing about rugby. $300 is a lot of beers. $300 is a lot of beers. Have I heard anything on the ground about hostage release? 2 nights ago, maybe 3 nights ago, there was a mother and a daughter released. Other than that, no, I haven't heard anything of that. We've had multiple calls from other governments to release the hostages, but at the end of the day, like I've said, that is Hamas's bargaining chip. To be honest, we actually reckon that on Friday, what day is it? Monday night? We reckon Friday night was the invasion. We think Friday night was actually going to be. So let's put him helmet down. That Friday night, the night when we were getting rocket attacked in a similar area to this, like the video where I put up where it was going hectic. We think that was actually the invasion. Like, that was when it was happening, and then it was all hectic. There was so much fire in and out, and then everything just stopped. Everything stopped, and then we found out through the news that hostages have been released, and we think this is just speculation, but us on the ground were like, everything was happening quickly, then it stopped almost instantly as the hostages were then released, and we think that's probably how they bloody did it from there. Do you think the US is preventing the invasion? I think they're at least trying to hold it off to get back more of their hostages too. The US has a lot of hostages in Gaza. A lot of people hold both Israeli and American passports as well, through birthright for being Jewish. Last night, the news said it was one of the worst nights. Yeah, it all happened after I left, did it? I'm not really sure. We do know that last night was the worst bombardment so far, we believe. What will happen to the child hostages, mate? I don't want to know. We know how Hamas has acted to children on this side of the border, so we don't know how it'll go on the other side of the border. But those hostages are definitely in a really bad spot. No, I'm not Jewish. Israel did hit, hundreds of buildings last night, and we believe that over 5,000 people in Gaza have been killed, and a lot of those are children. Really shocking thing. That's what we saw in the north of Gaza happening. All that bombing last night. What did someone say? The old rogues. Willie might, like a lot of these others, because they stream. Willie might look like a lot of others because he's streamed up. Oh my god, I can't talk. Willie's stream might look like a lot of others because they stream his content. Willie's actually there filming it live on his camera. Yeah, that's the difference. You might see this stream in a lot of other places, but I'm actually standing behind the camera, actually here streaming. Yeah, 5,000 according to Hamas sources. We should say that as well. But You know, whatever it is, it's shocking how many civilians have been killed there as well with the bombing. So, you know, I always think that more should be done to try and protect civilians and something like this. But it gets very difficult when Hamas is using that too as a bit of a shield. You know, it's been leaflets dropped. There's been now over 2 weeks of being told to get out of the north of Gaza, to get out of the north of Gaza, to go to the south because we're bombing the north. Being told that, leaflets dropped, messages, all this, and people still remain as well. Now I know it's easier said than done, but it is bloody hospital. Yeah, someone mentioned the hospital bloody snafu of, do you really believe the numbers? This is one of the problems. Is, you know, the hospital thing that discredited so much with how that went. Originally it was 500, then it was 1,000, then it was 50, and then it was 80, and we don't really know. And then we saw the bloody we saw satellite imagery of it, and we're like, well, you know, that doesn't look like a JDAM. We saw photos of what looked like one of their bottle rockets bloody turning back on itself, so we're not super sure there. Civilians moved south and got attacked while they fled. Yeah, we also know Hamas blocked roads, and there was a car bomb as well to stop people moving south. And we also know, someone mentioned there too, that a lot of people in the south were starting to move back to the north as well. So they went south for however long and then started moving back as well. Piss count is 0 currently, but it will go up to 1, I believe, fairly soon. We're looking over the north of Gaza from the south of Israel. Greetings from Little Diomede Island. Surely not a Little Diomede Island. Shit, I'm trying to read these. Is it true Hamas funnels rockets through at the hospitals using the shields? Bro, look, I'm not really sure. Potentially. We know Hamas uses tunnels all under civilian buildings, residential buildings, and I guess hospitals. We're not really sure, but I wouldn't be surprised by that one bit. Like I've spoken about again and again on this, is that you need to separate the people that live in Gaza, the Palestinians that live in Gaza, and Hamas. And you also need to then separate from the civilians that live there to those who are sympathetic to Hamas as well, which there is a lot. There is a difference. And if you are the Free Palestine crowd, fantastic, but what your message needs to be is to free Palestine of Hamas. Now, you should never be sympathetic. You should never be sympathetic towards a terrorist organisation who crossed and killed 1,400 or more, murdered, raped, took hostage. Don't be fucking sympathetic towards that. Was that small arms? I didn't hear any small arms. Maybe I missed it. Maybe I was focused on the bloody chat. I wish these journos would fuck off so I could steal their spot in their chair. I left a chair here last night and I grabbed it like instantly. Commentary makes the black shirt a lot more entertaining. Yeah, well, we may start seeing things pick up soon, but remember that all of Gaza is bloody pitch black at the moment. All of it. Is that one blue light in the center screen? I don't know. That one blue light is definitely in Gaza, but fucking no idea what it actually is. Am I in the same spot? Close. I'm about 100 meters to the right of where I was last night. So to the west? No, sorry, to the east of where I was last night. I'm trying to get my bearings. But very, very close. I'm going to go to the original spot we were last night as well. I don't know, let me know, do you think that this or last night's was a better spot? For those who have seen some of the actual firing going on as well. Did lights come back on last night? No, I don't believe so. You know, there was a hell of a lot of going on from there. Can you go closer? No, this is as close as any media. It doesn't matter if you're CNN, Fox, BBC, Israel channels, everything. This is as far as they are letting us in. That's why I don't think I'm spending much more time in Israel, because they don't let the press do bloody anything. But we have a good view over northern Gaza here. Great job. Stay safe. Thank you, Shy Vane. I really appreciate that. Cheers. Yes, in Sderot. What news source do you recommend? Do you suggest? Willie? No, I don't know. I try and gather from as many places as possible, but being on the ground makes it easier to sort of see through that as well. Jenny says, thank you, Willie, for reporting the truth. Sorry, I can't give more. Never be sorry about that on the skin. Never be sorry about not report or not giving more. Don't ever be worried if you don't give, but thank you, Jenny. That donation really does help me out. So we also have a donation from Bartram. Thank you for the PayPal donation as well. I really appreciate that. Have you seen any of the massacre sites? We've been in the vicinity of a couple, but not really. All that stuff is so fucking closed down. It's fucking very annoying because press can't do their job. Some of the press can get in because like the press who's super sympathetic towards Israel, like the super sympathetic press, who don't question anything, they get in places, but especially now that I'm bloody not accredited, yeah, it sort of sucks. But even accreditation, the guys accredited here are getting better fucking positions than I, so I don't know if it would even help me. Anyway, Frank Rizzo brings up a good point. PayPal is best because YouTube takes a big percentage. Frank brings up a great point. If you are going to donate, the best way is through the PayPal because YouTube do take 30%. Nah, Arby can't get in. No one can get in. Like literally, there might be some channels who got in very early on, but a lot of the channels are going with like they do like bus tours of journals. They would put them all on a bloody bus and drive them like spot to spot. But I'm not doing that shit. Rob Bertram. Hey mate, thank you. I don't think people understand the difference between monetized and donations. It's different. Anyway, from Johan Andreas, thank you. Appreciate that as well. And yes, you can still see ads even if you're unmonetized. YouTube still run them, motherfuckers. Anyway, so we're overlooking northern Gaza. Today has been actually a fairly slow day. To me, it has been. Like I looked over the news before. Like I've been looking over today because I needed to put together a piece to camera, and I was fucking struggling. I'm like talking about the same shit every day. I'm like waiting for the invasion, trying to go through some officials, see what their language is being used. But yeah, Fluctura, thank you for your work. What's your thought on Egypt for the next months? I have vacations planned for Cairo, and my name sounds Jewish. Look, mate, if I were you, I don't know if I'd be going, to be honest, bro. I don't know. I wouldn't be too keen on going to Cairo right now. Because like this could, especially in a few months, like you don't know, none of us know where this was actually going to end up. None of us know where this is going to end up in a couple of months, man. But personally, I probably wouldn't go. Did you get coffee with you? No, I don't drink coffee anyway. But I will. Steve, I'm a vet. I'm a vet too, mate. Massive respect for going out there off your own back. Didn't mind when we got paid. Thank you, brother. Thanks, Steve. I really appreciate that, mate. What time is it, man? That's a good question. It is 19:14, so 7:15 on the 20. Fucking what day is it? 23rd of October. Just watching our pale blue dot. How's it going, Willie? Did you get some sleep? Yeah, I did get some sleep, and now we're back here doing this. We've seen a bit of tank fire in the left. We saw tank fire. We've seen a few large explosions directly in front of us as well. But all is fairly
Oh, holy fuck. I think I was muted while I said all that, so let's try that again. So, Mr. Defense Minister, gallant at the shores outside Gaza, says we are thoroughly preparing for the next stage. It will be a deadly attack. An integrated one in the air, at sea, and on land. And I don't know who exactly took the pictures. There they are. And I was just saying that if you were around last night at all, it was some of the most heavy bombardment that we had seen up to date was then. Encourage you
Way more boring than this. The North would be just looking into the side of a black hill.
to like the stream.
Black mountain. Where?
Last night I got my first
going on this.
$100
No, not yet.
Super Rants.
Remember last night there was a heap going on.
Or Super Rants.
Where tonight maybe not as much, but we may pick up too. We don't know.
That was fun.
I've got on a little bit earlier than tonight as well, so I think we only probably started streaming about this time last night, maybe even later. We may see a lot of the pickup. That sound you're hearing is just like a water offlet. Don't worry about that. Oh shit. Hey Willie, previously in a PayPal question, sorry I missed that one. Do you believe in an afterlife of any kind, and have you seen anything paranormal in a war zone? Well, a music journalist with mad respect for what you do. Thank you, Derek. I appreciate that, mate. And thank you for the PayPal dono. No, I don't believe in afterlife. Personally, I'm just a big one of like once it's done, it's done. That's probably why I live the way I do. But I don't knock anyone who does. I sort of wish that I did. And no, I haven't actually seen anything paranormal. I've never seen anything that I couldn't explain away. Like I've seen some weird shit, but nothing paranormal. Although some of the guys last night behind us, like right on the edge of Sderot, right close to Gaza, there is a kindergarten, and some of the boys went in there to go to the bathroom, and they were like, "Man, it's fucking creepy in there." And one of them swears he heard like bloody kids yelling. So I don't want that shit. The B Night, thank you, mate. Have the IDF released the unedited Hamas footage they've taken off a dead Hamas? Do you think the guy will still persist like Holocaust style? Some of it has been released, only some of it the B Night, but not all of it. But they are doing private screenings for some journalists, and also I know a lot of the security guys here, and some of them have told me about what they've seen, and it's absolutely horrible. But I don't think some of that will be released, because it's just unbelievably fucking unbelievably savage. You know, cutting out fetuses of women and things like that. Where's the accept gift button of an iPhone? Maybe I should buy an iPhone, but I just don't want to support Apple. Jason, thank you, Jason, mate. I really appreciate that. Jason, Tomich, who hit me on PayPal, do you want to send me an email, mate? That's probably the easiest. But I really, really would appreciate that. Just remember, if you're watching this clip anywhere other than DD, the original channel who is streaming this is Willie OAM, Willily OAM. I'm a YouTuber. I'm on the ground actually filming this, rather than in my office stealing the stream. Someone said something. Bad dog Pete. I'm going to hit up on PayPal. YouTube takes too much money. Yeah, YouTube makes that much money. My email is in the description of any of my YouTube videos, not like not the.
He's not really saying much of anything that I'm interested in hearing. And see, compared to last night, it is really relatively quiet. I'm really hoping that it's 12:20. Should C-SPAN have an update for us? see what's going on here. Yeah, I gotta... I think we're gonna have to go to, like, CNN here to get the latest update, because C-SPAN is just like, oh yeah, 12:14. We'll have live coverage of that. There you are. So let's see what. Let's go first to CNN. Sounds like a plane. Might be hearing a boom soon. That sounds like a really big plane. I think there might have been a fate boom. I'm not seeing anything just yet on... Okay, well, Fox doesn't have anything that I'm seeing. Wait a minute here. There might be an article here. Alright, well, let's go to CNN. And then we'll have to go to Twitter. Okay, here we go. Alright, we're gonna momentarily share a tab here. Representative Dan Mauser, one of the 9 candidates running for the Allies, is pitched at the conference ahead of the candidate forum this evening. Okay, so the candidate forum is not happening until this evening? I'll be at work. Thanks. Thanks so much for making us wait until the evening. I said we oppose to passing Ukraine funding as part of the Israel package. We need to make the members of the show, not the speaker of the show, and so that means for fundraising, frankly, that means for communication, that means for legislation, that means going through, for being a spokesperson, that means doing everything we can to create a sense of ownership through the conference so everyone feels responsible, and once you feel responsibility for policy, you can't criticize it because it's your own. I guess that makes sense. When asked by CNN about ongoing ill will pervades throughout the conference, Mauser said you need to work at it every day, that he's not interested in spending energy on punishment with regards to the Republicans who asked the former Speaker McCarthy. Well, perhaps it's because of some of the things that I mentioned, maybe some haven't felt. Well, perhaps because some of the things that I mentioned, maybe some haven't felt respected over the years. Maybe there have been some legacy issues, maybe some personalities. I mean, let's face it, Kevin McCarthy was taken out unfairly. Most people took him out, most of them, maybe all of them, are my friends. As I said, I respect each and every one of them. That's got to be the case moving forward. Jim Jordan, I think, was probably a response to those who took out Kevin McCarthy. Now, the next in line, whoever that's going to be out of one of the 9, hopefully they're more agreeable to saying now it's time. The American people want us to stop this destruction and get on with it, Mauser's continued. When asked about tying Ukraine and Israel said aid, Mauser responded, absolutely not. I think it's wrong, and we need to make bills similar. I don't like the guy, the way this guy talks. Like, listen to this. If this is a direct quote, when asked about tying Ukraine and Israel said, Mauser responded, absolutely not. I think it's wrong, and we need to make bills simpler. Just spit it out and say it. Mauser said that he's not in favor of short-term spending while the government heads closer to a potential government shutdown in mid-November. So I can tell you right now that apparently any voting is not going to happen until sometime this evening. So maybe sometime around 6, maybe? This is a picture of all the 9 Republicans. I read a whole article about them last night. Not really gonna go much into it now. Not really gonna have too much longer because I am gonna have to start getting ready for work. But you have Representative Tom Emmer, Kevin Hurd, Jack Merman, Austin Scott, Byron Donalds, Mike Johnson, Pete Sessions, Dan Mauser, Gary Palmer. Yes, Teabag and Therapist. The Union Party is butthurt. They are, very much so. Oh dear. So today's candidate forum, Republicans are expected to hold a House Speaker candidate forum this evening as it's scrambled to find a new nominee and a path forward. After voting to push Ohio Representative on at the race Friday, the Democrats will hear from Speaker candidates during a closed-door meeting. What? And then hold a secret ballot election Tuesday to elect. Are you fucking kidding me? I thought something important was supposed to happen fucking today. These people. Oh my god. Oh. Ugh. Good lord. I had to go to CNN to find that out. Fortunately for the people in Gaza right now, it's relatively quiet. And I think that there's so many different live feeds right now because people were like, what's gonna happen? What's gonna happen? Surely the ground invasion will start now. Well, maybe. I need that whole video of Greta Thunberg, is that her name? I need that whole thing of her just saying, "How dare you!" I need that on repeat. I really do. I just think it just feels ridiculous to me to go quite this long without a decision on anything on behalf of the Republicans. It just, to me, it seems ridiculous. Maybe I'm missing something. Maybe there's something that I don't understand about how this has to work. Very large rumble. Let's wait and see. We may. To me, that's too big for us not to hear a boom. That was too loud and too close. I definitely don't think that it was your regular old passenger jet. So, last night, somebody was kind enough to send me a $100 Rumble rant. And now I'm presently trying to figure out how to actually access that money. Yeah. I got a thing from from Rumble saying that I've reached the level, the threshold. But maybe they fixed it now, that whatever I'm supposed to be able to click on, yeah, they have not fixed it. And I've sent them an email, but I don't know when they're gonna get on the stick and fix it. Because I haven't received a response to my email. I actually don't like how quiet it is right now. Because I don't know, it's hard to say at this point what is a worse sign. It could be a worse sign that it's as quiet as what it is. Oh, there was a boom boom. Oh, yep, it's out there. You know, I did hear of one other guy having the kind of the same problem with at first not being able to figure out how to cash out his Rumble earnings. So, yeah. Well, this really states, it's really the primary reason I came on today is because I thought that we would have some kind of action. And it looks like we're not getting one. When it comes to the House vote. And as far as I'm concerned, it's pathetic, but, you know. There's some boom booms. Ooh, we can say it on there. We're not hearing the constant drones like we were the other night. Although I think I might hear a faint one now. They've had, yesterday there were 98 rockets alerts from, like, Gaza. And so far today they've had 40. So, I guess the bombing and the shelling that they've been doing is having some effect on their ability to do that, but it's amazing that they are still able to do anything, really. I think it's kind of crazy. Let's see what he has to say. He's on the move. Maybe he's gonna go somewhere where we actually have some light? I don't know.
Now, where the fuck were we last night? Out here somewhere, I reckon. Okay.
It'd be kind of nice if we could see something.
Okay, we've moved. Right, that is pretty much the view we had last night too. Of course it won't focus. Why would it? There we go. There we go. Better-ish. Better-ish. So, is this better or is the other side better? Bad news is, some motherfucker has stolen my chair. That's critical. That is critical. I'm in the stream. Oh, okay. I'm gonna go steal a cinder block and sit on that. It's not gonna be as good as my chair. It'll do, donkey. It'll do.
Oh, good. I mean, at least we got some lights now. We can actually differentiate where the skyline is at, dude.
Your chair was liberated. Yeah, exactly. It was liberated. My chair was liberated by some other journalist. damn it. That sucks. Anyway. Alexandra, thank you for the becoming a member. That is amazing. Yeah, I know, dude. They're fucking... The journalists here literally just leave their rubbish everywhere. Like, they come up here and I just see them leave water bottles, throw rubbish on the ground. Like, fucking crazy. Like, isn't that wild? You come to another country, throw rubbish everywhere. It's a bit like... It doesn't matter if things are a bit over the place at the moment because, like, there's a war on. Don't just fucking leave your water bottle. Paddy R says, Fox food in your chair. Yes, mate. And also, thank you for all the donation. I was going to say, Jimmy Carr, my favourite comedian, has a really good segment on a podcast. I don't know which podcast actually is, but he's like, basically down the line of the person you are when you're all alone, that's who you actually are. If you're the sort of person that throws rubbish on the ground even if no one's looking, then that's who you actually are. Now, it wasn't Rogan. Rogan's was great too. It wasn't another one, I believe. But it's really, really true. I think of it a lot. I'm like, damn, yeah, that is who you are. Beers and Q&A when back in Australia. Yeah, dude. My first live back in Australia, maybe I'll get on the beers.
Rumble is gonna make it difficult for me to receive my payments when I'm eligible for them. Then I'm gonna tell people, you know, if you want to send me something, just do it via the Cash App. So I gotta take that banner off, say we are no longer waiting for those updates, because we're not going to be getting them. Yeah. Because our elected officials are idiots, basically. Further live coverage is expected. Aww. Dewey. Actually, let's switch over to Twitter here. We got something from Matt Gates that we might want to see. He does short little... Uh-oh. Wait a minute, we have noises here. We might hear boom boom.
Rules Committee seniority in that Rules Committee position under Kevin McCarthy, so he and McCarthy do not get along particularly well. Pete Sessions will draw heavily on the fact that he's from the largest delegation for Republicans in the country. That's the Texas delegation. If all of the Texans get behind Pete Sessions, I think he's got a really high probability of coming out of the gate with a strong base of support. And he'll make the argument that just like the Texas delegation, the Republican conference has more conservatives, more suburbanites, more centrists, more moderates. So if he could convince that delegation to support him, he would likely argue that that would allow him to bring in people from the various factions of our conference to be able to lead us effectively. That is the Pete Sessions case from Texas, former Rules Chairman. That brings us to our final candidate, Austin Scott. Austin Scott from the state of Georgia. You'll remember he challenged Jim Jordan, got 81 votes in that contest. I praised Austin Scott online because after he was defeated by Jim Jordan, he backed him 100% for Speaker, voted for him 3 times, was working hard to get the gavel for Jordan. And I just think that's a class act. It's a total, I think, responsible thing to do after someone bests you in a contest like that, to back them. He is running on a campaign that includes consequences for the 8 of us who did not support Kevin McCarthy, including yours truly. He serves on the House Armed Services Committee and the Agriculture Committee. He voted for the debt limit deal that many of us oppose. I want to play one clip for you because it overlays one of my principal critiques of this town. I've told you that Washington, D.C. is a corrupt place, and the lobbyists and bundlers and political action committees exist for one principal reason: to use the money that lawmakers need for political campaigns in order to extract favors that otherwise they would never get. Because in the absence of all of that, our principal motivation would be to put the needs of our constituents, our voters, first. But if you view money as the principal path to get to the voters, well, then you end up working for the lobbyists and the special interests. We are live broadcasting to you right now from the Rayburn building. But if I were to take about 30 or 40 steps outside of this building, I would go across the street where there is an office building for the Republican National Committee and the National Republican Congressional Committee. Across the street from the Capitol is where our party leaders and bosses often meet with lobbyists to get commitments for them to provide money and then ultimately to receive those donations in the form of fundraisers, gatherings, policy conferences, dinner. That all happens just across the street from where we are right now. When you're in the Capitol building, it is not only verboten, it's quite literally against the law to talk about fundraising and donations. You have to do that across the street. You can't do it in the Capitol building. Astonishingly, I watched former House Speaker Kevin McCarthy make the case on Meet the Press that what's most important when evaluating a potential candidate for Speaker is not just how they will lead inside the Capitol building. It is what they will do across the street for the lobbyists and special interests. Take a listen.
This is not a moment in time to play around with learning on the job. We need someone who understands how to do this job. I believe Tom Emmer, our whip, he's been in the room with all of our successes, from our bills to secure the border, from Parents' Bill of Rights, from cutting $2 trillion, getting work requirements. He knows how to do the job across the street at the same time, helping us win the majority. He sets himself head and shoulders above all those others who want to run. We need to get him elected this week and move on and bring this not just party together, but focus on what this country needs most.
So did you hear the tell? Kevin McCarthy, while endorsing his preference for House Speaker, literally referenced the across-the-street work as central to the position. You see, it's the parlance in Washington that you talk about the people who are best at laundering special interest money at being good across the street. I just can't believe that. That was so off-putting to me, so debasing, that the way we have to evaluate leadership is based on who can go and launder the most lobbyist money. And then all of that money has strings attached. The live stream is going crazy with different people offering their perspective. Nobody wants to return to Kevin McCarthy. Some of you just want no speaker. If the House of Representatives is so eager to open up to send money to Ukraine, there is substantial sentiment that maybe if we kept the lights off for a few more days, we might get people oriented back to a perspective to put the needs of our fellow Americans before the needs of which guy next wants to run Crimea. Also, a lot of sentiment for candidates that I did not list. So Donald Trump, we have thrown this lure as many times as is possible. President Trump does not want to be considered candidate for House Speaker. I've tried. Troy Nehls has tried. Marjorie Taylor Greene's tried. Lauren Boebert's tried. Nunes is another one picking up, particularly on Rumble, a lot of positive sentiment. I would absolutely vote for Devin Nunes for Speaker. There are other folks who aren't in the Congress now, prior members who've been thrown out. Some people threw out Newt Gingrich. I think that's a terrible idea. Actually, throwing out Newt Gingrich was the good idea. Throwing his name out for Speaker, not so much. But Lee Zeldin got a number of votes in prior rounds, and Lee Zeldin is someone I could absolutely support for Speaker. But I talked to a lot of our members, and I just want to bring you inside the decision-making here. Right now, about 1 out of every 4 people in the United States Congress would not vote for someone who's not a current member of the body. I would, but 1 in 4 wouldn't even consider such a person. So as attractive as people like Devin Nunes and Lee Zeldin are, as unifying consensus options, I think they would struggle to win over a sufficient number of institutionalists to be able to get there. Can't let you go without showing you how the mainstream media is freaking out about what's going on in the House right now. The power centers of the establishment and the mainstream media are so aligned, they are really losing it. Lead opinion in the New York Times, the people who broke the House. And if you're watching right now on YouTube, Rumble, on X, or Facebook, you can see that the camera guys get a pretty good look at my phone. If you zoom in there, you can see I'm charting in the second round of the Jordan balloting who is voting and who they're voting for. But they make the argument that I've broken the House. This is the same New York Times that often calls me far right and extreme. But they actually charted out the ideology of the people who blocked McCarthy and then the people who blocked Jordan. And it tells you an interesting story. So if you're watching right now, and sorry if you're one of our tens of thousands of listeners, you can use this time to go and give me a 5-star rating, leave a review. But if you're watching, you can see on the screen this chart that the New York Times has put together showing the ideologies of the Republicans who were against McCarthy. The most moderate, the closest to the center, Nancy Mace. The most conservative, Andy Biggs. And there you see me, nestled right there in the center right of the Republican conference, kind of right where I want to be, reflecting the views of our fellow Americans without any sort of agenda beyond what would make for people in Northwest Florida.
And you probably good.
So
at
whenever
it.
the New York Times
Probably
calls
a
me
good
an
speaker.
extreme right, hardline member going forward, I may have to show them their own data that suggests otherwise. But then the story gets even richer. If you go to the next chart, you see the people who blocked Jim Jordan. And Ken Buck, very conservative. He's the most conservative person who blocked Jordan. And then Though at the end, I'm pretty sure Buck was not going to stand between Jim Jordan and the speakership. I actually have some information on that. So he wasn't really the one blocking Jordan. But it's all these dots on the left. The most liberal members of our caucus blocked the most popular Republican in the United States House of Representatives. And they did so because their lobbyist friends knew that Jim Jordan wouldn't put them first and wouldn't be a part of this corrupt system. And it's a shame, but this is also 100% an exercise in exposing the people who do not truly work for you. There's another piece in the Wall Street Journal, Molly Ball. The headline, Matt Gaetz tore the House GOP apart. He is apart. McCarthy told reporters, listen, the whole country, I think, would scream at Matt Gaetz right now. And Molly Ball continues, Gaetz, a Kennedy student of procedure with a knack for tapping the conservative zeitgeist, has taken it upon himself to assemble a shifting band of dissidents, and up to now, he's been dramatically successful. While critics accuse Gaetz of attention-mongering, he insists he is about outcomes, not headlines. Chaos doesn't scare me. American decline does. Whether McCarthy is replaced by a similar figure or a more conservative one, Gaetz wins either way, said Liam Donovan, a Republican lobbyist. If a conservative wins, it would make Gaetz a hero to the right. Otherwise, it would further his argument that the D.C. cartel is conspiring to frustrate conservative aims. I do not know who Liam Donovan is, the Republican lobbyist cited in this article, but he's kind of right. If we end up with a more conservative speaker, then we will have achieved the objective of upgrading the position. Maybe it's not the ideal person you want if you were hoping for Donald Trump or Jim Jordan or Devin Nunes or me. It's not going to be that first choice. But if it's someone more conservative, then we've moved in the right direction. And if it's not, you will know why. You won't have to wonder why Republicans in Congress continue to send out press releases and tweets about their intentions and what they're going to fight and what they're going to defund. You see what they're willing to fight for. One of them, Illinois Congressman Mike Bost, even wanted to fight me. I've seen people get to the microphone with tears in their eyes about how much they love one leader or another. They never were that concerned as Joe Biden was opening the border and as our fellow Americans were being poisoned by fentanyl. I can tell you that. The establishment hacks are way more worried about their precious power centers here than about what's happening to the American people right now. And so, yeah, it's either going to be more conservative or it's not. And either way, you're going to win because you're going to have better outcomes or you're going to have a specific pathway on what you have to do to get them. And we are demystifying this. And I'm glad we're doing it. We're doing it all over the country, too, not just here in Washington. I was traveling over the weekend in the 5th District of Virginia with my friend Bob Good, and I had a chance to stop at Appomattox Courthouse, and I just couldn't resist making this little video for you. Take a listen.
Well, that's about as useless as Confederate money. It's a saying to denote that something has lost all of its value. It's because right behind me at Appomattox Courthouse, when General Robert E. Lee surrendered to Ulysses S. Grant, everyone holding Confederate money all of a sudden saw the value go to zero. Well, you know what? Over this last week, there's been a lot of criticism over what we've done in the United States Congress. But one thing I can tell you, all the lobbyists and special interests who gave Kevin McCarthy $1 billion, they're all holding Confederate money because the IOUs from the swamp and the special interests have gone to zero, and the interests of the American people, they're about to be front and center. Stay tuned.
So we are back live in just a few hours. I'll be meeting directly with Austin Scott, one of the candidates. He's invited a group of us to chat with him about his vision. We ought to be open-minded, listening to everyone. A lot of you on the live stream are asking who are my favorites. So I'll end the show with that. Look, I believe that what you just heard from Kevin Hearn is a real plan. This is a real plan to stop governing by continuing resolution. And it's serious, and he's a very serious person. He would make a phenomenal speaker. I've sat next to Mike Johnson for 7 years on the House Judiciary Committee. I know that if he is the Speaker of the House, everything that Kevin McCarthy has done to block the release of the January 6 tapes, to block our subpoenas, that will be over, and it will be a new era of exciting leadership. Mike Johnson would make a phenomenal Speaker. And of course, you know how I feel about Byron Donalds, my fellow Florida man, a dynamic communicator, an inspiring choice, someone who has effectively worked across the conference to bring people to, I think, a more conservative position, but a unifying position on a number of issues, including our big border bill, H.R. 2. Byron Donalds also shares a lot of the concerns of coastal communities that impact Northwest Florida. So I think that he would also make a phenomenal choice for House Speaker. So those are 3 of the 9 that I'm real excited about. And I'm going to allow myself the opportunity to hear what the others have to say. It's not about one man. It's not about one person. It's not even about us. You see, that's why 7 of the 8 offered last week to accept punishment or sanction, removal from the conference if people were willing to get past their issues and vote for Jim Jordan. But we can still end up with a phenomenal speaker. The plan wasn't Jordan or bust. These other men are of great virtue, and I think that we're going to hear a lot more tonight. I can't wait to update you in the future. The best way to stay informed regarding what's going on in Congress are updates regarding what's going on around the world, and particularly the Middle East and in Europe. Make sure you are subscribed. Give us that 5-star rating. Have your notifications turned on. Tune in, because we'll be back soon on Firebrand. Roll the credits.
Alright, well that's all Matt Gaetz has for us at the moment. Sadly, I guess we should find out what the White House has to say for themselves. Well, you're your uncle.
Go the bachelor, yeah. It was 5 years. It was interesting.
Trey Yanks, a journalist with Fox News, is reporting that 23 journalists have been killed since the war erupted on October 7th. They include 19 Palestinians, 3 Israelis, and 1 Lebanese.
Even though we're gone for such a little time.
Apparently, when you live in an open-air prison, you can be a journalist.
Peter Hill used the little vacation cards with what to do. Something happened. There was not the whole, there wasn't even one area. Okay. Well, you got through Colorado. Oh, he wasn't blown out. Yeah. I got it. Oh, man. Well, that's the best kind of, right? Like, got away from it. It's fun to make yeah, it's like 2 hours getting over. Yeah. But he had no reason to go. Yeah, so I was like halfway to Colorado Springs and I got to spent a summer in college, Colorado Springs. It's a weird place. Temple Mountain? Yeah, it's just now. 20 years ago.
Journalist or journalist? Journalist. Journalist, I promise. Journalist.
The press briefing will begin in 2 minutes. The press briefing will begin in 2 minutes.
I retweeted it and said, open air prison has 19 people who made a living as a journalist. Prison ain't what it used to be. I'm sure I make it a, Ooh. This is from Nario Newfall. This is interesting.
Good.
According to Mario Nufo, breaking 50 hostages to be returned, airstrikes seized. We have seen a lull in the airstrikes, that is true. Israeli airstrikes on Gaza have ceased to allow safe access for Red Cross personnel. The transfer expected in the Khan Yunis area in the south of Gaza. A deal is anticipated if no new obstacles arise in the hours ahead. Qatari mediation is a crucial part of the process. The source is Al Arabiya. Al Arabiya? Are they though, or are they really smear merchants? I mean, some of them maybe. Why only release 50 though? Why not release them all? I wish they would just release them all, recognizing that, you know, they're not doing anything to help themselves by continuing to hold these people.
Good afternoon, everybody. Good to see everyone. I have a couple things at the top before I turn it over to the Admiral. As the conflict between Israel and Hamas continues, President Biden has made it a top priority to ensure that the Palestinian people receive urgently needed humanitarian aid. This is something he's been actively engaged on over the past week, including calls with President Sisi of Egypt and in meetings
I'm
and
gonna turn
calls
her
with
down
Prime
just a
Minister
little bit.
Netanyahu. We're glad
She
to
is
see the first
loud.
convoys of humanitarian assistance over the weekend cross the border into Gaza and reach Palestinians in need. And we're grateful for partners involved in these efforts. It is important to keep Rafah crossing in operation and aid flowing without diversion from Hamas. Humanitarian assistance remains a critical and urgent need for Palestinians in Gaza. We know, and we understand this, that much more is needed, and this will remain a priority for us in the days and weeks ahead. I also wanted to say a few words about the supplemental request that we detailed to all of you on Friday. Under President Biden's leadership, we have rallied a global response to Putin's invasion of Ukraine and provided aid to Israel following Hamas's barbaric terrorist attack. We now need Congress to provide additional resources that will advance our national security and support our allies and partners in their fight against tyrants and terrorists. The supplemental the President put forward invests in American defense industrial base to ensure our military readiness, strengthen the American economy, and create American jobs, support Israel as it protects itself against Hamas, helps Ukraine defend against Putin's brutal invasion, provides humanitarian assistance to innocent civilians devastated by Putin's invasion and Hamas's horrific attacks, strengthens security and stability in the Indo-Pacific, provides alternatives to corrosive financing by the PRC, strengthens border security, and fights the flow of fentanyl. The world is watching, and the American people expect their leaders to come together and deliver on these priorities. We will continue to work with members of both parties to address these needs in a bipartisan agreement in the weeks ahead. And with that, Admiral John Kirby from the National Security Council is here to answer any questions that you have on Israel and any other foreign-related items. Admiral?
Afternoon, everybody. Just to briefly recap events of the past few days, I thought it'd be good to kind of catch up here after the weekend. On Friday, I think you all know, we successfully secured the release of 2 Americans that had been taken hostage by Hamas during the horrific terrorist assault on the 7th of October. And the President had a chance to speak with them and with their families. As he told the families that he met in Tel Aviv, family members of others who have been taken hostage. We have no higher priority than the safety of Americans that are being held around the world, and we're going to continue around the clock to see if we can get them home with their families where they belong. It is literally an hour-by-hour effort here at the White House and at the State Department to find out where these folks are and to try to make the effort to get them out and get them back. As Karine just spoke about, of course, first convoys over the weekend of humanitarian assistance across that border, and was able to reach Palestinians in need. And as she also said, we're going to continue those efforts going forward. It's important that the aid be sustainable, and that's what we're focused on. And of course, throughout the weekend, the President received briefings from his national security team on all the latest developments. And yesterday, as you know, he convened calls with Prime Minister Netanyahu, His Holiness, Pope Francis, and then, of course, with the leaders of Canada, France, Germany, Italy, and the United Kingdom. I'm sure you all saw the joint statement from all those leaders that they released last night. I won't reiterate it, but you can hopefully take away from that a real clear consistency and unanimity for Israel's right to defend itself against terrorism, while, of course, adhering to international humanitarian law, including the protection of civilians. Now, we've also seen over the course of the last few days, actually the course of the last week, but certainly over the last couple of days of the weekend, an uptick in rocket and drone attacks by Iranian-backed proxy groups against military bases housing U.S. personnel in Iraq and Syria. And we're deeply concerned about the potential for any significant escalation of these attacks in the days ahead. At the direction of President Biden, the Secretary of Defense has ordered the military to take steps to prepare for this to ensure that we're postured appropriately, both in terms of being able to defend our forces and respond decisively as needed. The Secretary of Defense has directed 2 carrier strike groups to the region, and we are now sending more air defenses to U.S. air bases in the region. Now, we know these groups are supported by the IRGC and the regime. We know Iran continues to support Hamas and Hezbollah. And we know that Iran is closely monitoring these events and in some cases actively facilitating these attacks and spurring on others who may want to exploit the conflict for their own good or for that of Iran. We know Iran's goal is to maintain some level of deniability here, but we're not going to allow them to do that. We also are not going to allow any threat to our interest in the region to go unchallenged. We demonstrated last week that we have and will use the military capables available to us to protect and defend those interests. And those capabilities are getting bigger and better every day. As President Biden has said, our message to any hostile actor seeking to escalate or widen this conflict is very simple. Don't do it. With that, take some questions.
John, is it your view that the Israelis should begin their Gaza offensive whenever they feel ready?
It's our view that the Israeli Defense Forces, Steve, need to decide for themselves how they're going to conduct operations. We're not in the business of dictating terms to them, and we're certainly not going to be in the business here from the White House of previewing any future operations one way or the other. That would be inappropriate.
Secondly, you said that Iran is actively facilitating these attacks. What are you seeing? What exactly are they doing?
Oh, their support for these Iran-backed proxies is no secret. It's pretty open. And they've made no secret of it. Funding, resourcing in terms of providing the rockets and the munitions that they fire, training for some of these guys. I mean, there is a connection between these groups and the IRGC, a very direct connection.
We have reported that the administration has been urging Israel to delay a ground invasion. Can you tell us whether other countries are making the same request? Is there a coordinated effort on their front?
MJ, I won't speak for other nations and what communications they might be having with Israel. I can tell you, we have since the beginning of the conflict, in the early hours, maintained a level of communication with our Israeli counterparts to ascertain their intentions, their strategy, their aims, to see what their answers are to the kinds of tough questions that any military ought to be asking before you launch any kind of a major operation. Have you thought through the branches? Have you thought through the sequels? Have you thought through the unintended consequences? And so we are in active conversation with them about that.
And John, we've seen a number of leaders travel to Israel or commit to traveling to Israel, of course the president himself. Is it your understanding that there would not be a ground invasion as long as there's a head of state in the country?
That is a question for Israeli officials to speak to, MJ. Again, I just don't want to be in the position where I am speaking for the Israeli Defense Forces.
Well, another quick topic. Why is it that people currently are not able to leave Gaza right now? Do you have sort of an explanation as to why that humanitarian corridor for people to exit Gaza, why that isn't open? Is the obstacle Hamas? Is it the Egyptians?
I think there's a lot of factors going into why there's no exit out. We're glad that stuff's going in, as Kareem briefed y'all, but we still want to see safe passage out, and particularly for the several hundred American citizens that we know are in Gaza and want to leave. And Ambassador Satterfield is on the ground working this very, very hard. But there's a number of factors, and I think security, certainly Egyptian officials have spoken to this. I mean, there's they've got legitimate security concerns, and again, we just need to work through that.
Admiral, can you tell us the latest on the status of hostages and the work to try to release additional hostages? Do you see a category of those being held who might be sort of the next available to be released if that were to take place? Can you give us a sense of what that picture looks like?
I wish I could, Kelly. I really do. And these are all great questions, but unfortunately where we are right now in the process makes it impossible for us to publicly detail the efforts that are going on. We are grateful for all the help we got, and we got help getting those 2 Americans out, the mother and daughter, and we're glad that they're okay and they're going to be reunited with the families and come back home. But there's a bunch of others that aren't. Now, small group, we still think are Americans, and then there are dozens and dozens from other countries, and obviously Israel as well. And there's just a lot of effort going on, a lot of conversations and discussions with partners in the region, and I think it's just best if we don't detail that.
Do we have more specificity on the number of Americans? It's floated from a handful to as many as 10. Anything more on that?
I want to be careful here because the numbers, as you rightly said, have fluctuated since the last time I talked to you. Certainly now we're glad to know that the number is down by 2, obviously. But we still have about 10 unaccounted for Americans, and it's not exactly clear to us where those 10 people are. So I would still categorize it as about a handful. And I know that's not the specificity you want, but that's really as detailed as I think I should get today.
One last issue. There's a dual national from Maryland, young man who went to serve in the IDF, who was killed in action. Can you speak to that situation, if the president has reached the family or has any intention to do that? Any particulars there?
Well, we certainly offer our deepest condolences to the family. That's news no mom and dad ever want to get. I don't have any communication to speak to one way or the other, but again, our thoughts and prayers go to the family, sure.
John, on a post-Hamas Gaza, if that were to happen, is there anything that you can share on what conversations the U.S. is having on what that post-Hamas Gaza would look like and who would run things?
Really, that's going to be a conversation that Israeli officials, need to start having amongst themselves. And I think, again, without speaking for them, I don't think I'm going too far to say that the focus right now is on going after Hamas, where they are in Gaza, getting humanitarian assistance in, getting people out. That's where our focus is, and I know the focus of our Israeli counterparts is certainly on prosecuting these operations against Hamas. I think the issue of governance in Gaza certainly is not unimportant, but I wouldn't speak for the Israelis in terms of how deeply they're diving down into what that needs to look like.
The U.S. is helping with that conversation, please?
We have talked to the Israelis again about their aims and strategy, and that includes some of the long-term issues that are out ahead of them. But I think you can understand appropriately right now that the focus is on the operational picture.
On the normalization process, can you say if Saudi Arabia has provided a list of requests for what it would like to see for those talks to start again between Saudi Arabia and Israel?
I'm not tracking or aware of a specific threat. Now, you're talking post-October 7th. I'm not aware of some sort of new list or homework assignment that they've submitted. We still believe that those talks are important. We still want to pursue normalization. We understand that both in Israel and, of course, in Riyadh, there's a different focus right now. We get that. But we still believe there's great value in pursuing normalization, and we have every intention of keeping that going.
Thank you, Admiral. What kinds of humanitarian aid would the U.S. like to see reaching the Palestinians before Israel launches a ground invasion?
Can I bifurcate that question? Because I'm not going to sit here and assume that there's going to be some sort of a ground invasion, and I'm certainly not going to speak to hypothetical timing if there's going to be. Let's just talk about humanitarian assistance writ large. And you heard Karine, we are getting food, water, medicine in to Gaza, not enough. I mean, there's been, I think, 3 convoys, some little less than 60 trucks. That's a good start, but it is just a start. We want to see it keep going, and I think over coming days you're going to continue to see convoys of trucks.
He wouldn't speak to whether or not there's going to be a ground
but
invasion.
But it's also, fuel is also an issue. We know
that is interesting.
You need fuel to run power generators in hospitals. You need fuel to run the pumps in the desalination facilities so that people can drink fresh, healthy water. So fuel is another thing that we're working on.
But whether or not there is a ground invasion, do you view humanitarian aid getting there first as important?
Whether or not there's a ground invasion, we believe that humanitarian assistance flowing to the people of Gaza is critically important, and it needs to go as soon as possible and as much as possible.
And where does the president stand on this? Because there was some confusion over the weekend about whether or not he had said that, yes, he does want Israel to wait until humanitarian assistance can get to the Palestinians before any invasion.
We have been crystal clear with our partners in the region, including Israel, that we want to see humanitarian assistance flow. There's been no change to our posture on that at all. But as I said, I think to Steve's question, we're not dictating military terms to the Israeli Defense Forces. They have a right and a responsibility to go after these terrorists, and they certainly are going to do it in a way that they choose to, that they believe is appropriate to the threat. We're definitely going to support them in terms of providing the capabilities for them to continue to prosecute Hamas terrorists. In fact, security assistance has continued to flow over the course of the weekend, and it will. But we're not dictating terms to them.
Thank you. So the UN Secretary General, the European Union Foreign Policy Chief, and several international leaders are calling for a humanitarian ceasefire. Will we see the United States calling for a humanitarian pause?
What we want right now is make sure Israel has the tools it needs to defend itself and to go after Hamas, and that humanitarian assistance keeps flowing. Now, it's started, and it's a good thing. We want to keep it going and keep it sustainable. That's what we're focused on.
Sorry, you mentioned this joint statement yesterday where President Biden and several Western allies asked Israel to protect civilians. But the death toll in Gaza is rising sharply. Does it look to you that Israel is abiding by international law? Are they listening to your advice?
We're not going to parcel out each and every event that happens on the battlefield, especially since we're not there. I can just tell you that there hasn't been a conversation that we've had with Israeli counterparts, and we've had them at all levels, where we aren't talking about not just what they want to do, but how they want to do it.
John, 2 Fridays ago, I reported that the U.S. was urging Israel to delay a ground invasion after the officials here issued statements to other outlets denying that was the case. In the days, week plus since, other outlets have started to report the same information that I had, but today you're not confirming any of those reports. My question is, are you at all concerned that if the U.S. is not clear with the public about what we are asking or suggesting to Israel that they do here, that that's going to complicate getting this aid package through Congress? I mean, you guys are asking for more than $105 billion, which a portion of this goes toward Israel. Are you concerned that not being clear with folks about what the U.S. is advising Israel to do will hamper support in Congress for this aid?
We've been very clear and consistent about our support for Israel and their ability to defend themselves. Jackie, we've been very clear and consistent about the fact that we're going to keep providing security assistance so that they can do that. We've been clear and consistent about the need for humanitarian assistance to flow, and clear and consistent about our desire to get people out of Gaza as well as to get our hostages home. I think we've been very clear and consistent throughout, and that includes with members of Congress. And yes, we are going to need congressional support to continue to support Israel. We've got enough appropriations available to us for a while longer. Well, how long is that while is going to depend on the expenditure rate and the kinds of operations that they're conducting. So we desperately need Congress to act on this supplemental request.
You said you've been asking tough questions of the Israelis about their strategy here. Are you liking the answers that they're giving you?
No, I'm not going to talk about the details of the conversations that we're having. Again, these have been clear and consistent conversations. Again, making sure that they have what they need and that they are thinking through. We are
a lot of
them
times
what their
they are
answers
given
to
a
the kinds
heads
questions
up
that any
of
military
the
ought to be asking itself,
questions
as it conducts operations.
On the aid
that they're going to
portion,
ask.
now, how, for instance, are you going to convince people that this is not going to
in
get
order
into
for
Hamas's
them
hands?
to be
When, for
able
instance, we saw fraud with something
have
like
prepared
COVID relief money
answers
in the U.S. And
instead of
we're now
constantly getting
talking
caught
about
flat-footed.
securing an understanding with Hamas, a terror
But
group, about
generally,
how
most of the time, it's
this
like, oh, I can't
humanitarian
really
aid
speak
should
to
be
that.
used. I mean, how can you convince people that that is going to be
yeah,
a worthwhile, necessary, and secure endeavor?
We certainly share concerns about any diversion of humanitarian assistance for Hamas purposes. I mean, for instance, fuel's a good example. That we know that they need fuel to be able to electrify and to power up their tunnels, for instance. Keep the lights on. So we understand that. We're not blind to the potential concerns here over diversion, which is why Ambassador Satterfield is on the ground. His whole purpose is to make sure that humanitarian assistance can get to the Palestinian people. We have seen no indications as of today that any of the trucks that Karine talked about, any of the material in those trucks, have been diverted to Hamas or been absconded by Hamas. That, in fact, every indication that we have is that it has, in fact, gone to the Palestinian people who are in desperate need for it. I would remind folks that we have trusted partners on the ground, humanitarian aid organizations, and of course the UN Relief Agency is on the ground, and they very much are taking a personal stake, a professional personal stake, in making sure that that aid is getting where it's needed. We're going to watch it. Obviously, we're going to watch this closely. We don't want to see Hamas benefit any more than anybody else does.
Just following on that, how does the U.S. go about knowing that it is getting to who it's supposed, the aid is getting to who it's supposed to get to, and not Hamas isn't taking a bit off the top? And then second, could you confirm that the president has sent Lieutenant General James Flynn and some other folks to advise the Israelis?
So on your first question, Amr, in fact, I'm going to write these down because I'm going to probably forget it. But on your first question, as I said, we're working with trusted partners on the ground, including the UN. And that's the way we do it in so many countries around the world, where we don't have a footprint, we don't have or any regions of the world, where we don't have a footprint. I mean, we're not on the ground to personally inspect these things, but we do have trusted partners on the ground, including the UN and some of these aid organizations, who will report what they're seeing and where they're taking this material and who's getting it. So we'll stay in close touch with them, and we all share the same desire that Hamas not be able to divert any of this stuff for their own purposes. We all share that desire, and it's not just the United States. You said, how's the United States going to monitor? The whole international community has a stake here in making sure that the people of Gaza get this food, water, medicine, and other vital needs met. On your second question, what I can tell you is that that there are a few relevant military
I don't
officers
think that
with
there's
experience,
there,
the kinds of
there's
experience
access
that
when they do
that
that.
we believe,
It's kind of considered
the sorts of operations that Israel is
a professional courtesy
to go over there to
kind
share
of
some perspectives from their own experience,
give them
and to ask
a
the
heads
hard
up
questions, the same hard questions
to
that
say,
we've been
you
asking
know,
our
hey,
Israeli
these are the
counterparts from the beginning.
questions we're gonna ask. There was a Fox News correspondent that talked about it.
Israel has repeatedly said that its top priority is destroying Hamas.
I guess
So
that you
what
don't
is
really
America's top
tend to
priority?
get very far with them if you're gonna constantly
America's
be
top priority?
sandbagging them.
I think President Biden made that clear when we were over there, is to make sure that Israel has the tools
So
and
he
the
found
capacity
that
and the
a
capabilities
much
to go
better
after
tactic
Hamas
and much
terrorists,
better
and
policy
to make sure
when
humanitarian
trying to work with
assistance
them.
flows in, and to make sure we can get innocent civilians who want to leave Gaza out.
That's news to me.
Israel does begin this ground invasion. Could you just outline
That's news to
how
me,
this
but
conflict is
maybe
getting
that was
underway
just
now
not been
and
my
how it
understanding
will
from
impact America's strategy?
interviews
I
with
don't think it's wise for me to get up
with
here
people that have
and
talked
do a
about
bunch of
their
speculating
experience,
and
but
hypothesizing
I don't
about
know. Maybe
operations
some
that
people have
haven't
had that
happened
happen to them.
We'll let the Israelis speak for themselves. And
I
for
do
what
get the
operations they're
impression
gonna
that
conduct.
some
All I can
questions
tell you
that
is
they
we're gonna
were
make sure that
prepared
they have
for
what they need to do it,
a little bit.
and that the humanitarian assistance keeps flowing.
Are there any differences? Because you outlined three
There's an
top
airplane.
priorities for America, and Israel has repeatedly said the top priority is destroying Hamas. So how can you achieve?
But if
all
you
of the
notice,
priorities
we're
for America
we're
at the
not
same
really
time?
we're not really getting any boom booms. I'm probably gonna be ending this soon because I'm gonna have to get ready for work.
Going after Hamas. There's no daylight here. We also think it's important for humanitarian assistance to flow and for our hostages to get home with their families, and we're working all three of those things.
Way in the back.
Have you been tracking new reporting coming out that Hamas and the Red Cross are working together to exchange another 50 Israeli and dual citizenship hostages? Is there anything you can say about that?
No, I cannot.
And then another question on Iran. Some officials have expressed concern over escalation, particularly with Iran, and Iran's foreign minister warned, quote, anything would be possible at any moment and the region will get out of control. So have you seen any indication that Iran is preparing to further expand this conflict more so than what we've already seen?
I touched a little bit on that in my opening statement. We know that they're supporting these groups. We know they've supported Hamas and Hezbollah. We know they're monitoring these events very, very closely, and in some cases urging on some of these groups. And that's why I made it clear the president does not want to see this conflict widen. We have added additional military capability into the region to deter any such action, and we will act appropriately to protect and defend our national security interests in the region. You saw that just last week when a guided missile destroyer shot down missiles and drones that were potentially on their way into Israel. We take those responsibilities seriously, and anybody else in the region ought to be paying attention to that.
Thank you, Gary. John, do you have an update on whether Iran was directly involved in the October 7th attack on Israel? Because some Israeli officials say that they have evidence, but they have not presented any yet.
Yeah, I would say we're in the same place we were. We know there's complicity here by Iran. As I just said, they have been supporting Hamas for years.
That was a big boom.
A couple of decades, and Hamas.
And I didn't think that we were supposed to be doing any boom booms.
I can't stand here before you and say that we've seen
because we wanted people to get released.
Intelligence that shows that they were participating in, witting of, directing what happened on October 7th. But again, nobody's doubting, nobody's walking away from the fact that Iran does bad things with bad people in that part of the world.
How does the White House see China's role in the Israel-Hamas conflict, and what's your reaction to China sending 6 warships to the Middle East?
I'll let China speak for their foreign policy in the region and whatever their take is. I've seen them call for both sides to ratchet down the violence. We've been clear about where we are, and we're on Israel's side here. Israel needs this support to go after Hamas terrorists. That's not going to change. And I'll let them speak to their naval maneuvers and where they're putting their ships.
China or Russia on the Israel-Hamas conflict?
I know of no particular conversations we've had bilaterally with either country thus far.
Thanks, John. Speaking of the Americans in Gaza, some are being told that by the State Department, by the administration, to go to the border. We were told on Saturday, or they were told to go to the border, but they obviously could not leave. Are you still advising Americans to go to the border? What's the hold up there?
You'd have to talk to the State Department. I can't speak for the communication that they're having with American citizens there. What I can tell you is that we are working this very, very hard to get them out of Gaza, again, through Rafah. And Ambassador Satterfield literally is working this as you and I are speaking right now. And so we obviously, if we want to get them out, we want to have them available as close by as possible so that can be effected in a very efficient way. But as for what specific messages the State Department is sending today and Monday, you'd have to talk to them.
Speaking about what President Biden said on Friday at the fundraiser, he talked about the Hamas attack being carried out to disrupt the normalization efforts between Israel and Saudi Arabia. Can you talk more about what he meant by that? Is that the administration's position?
We certainly can't discount the fact that could have been a goal here. Hamas wants to wipe Israel out.
What happened to the bombings we're supposed to seize?
To kill as many Israelis as they can.
What happened to that?
The purpose of October 7th, to just take life, and it is perfectly possible that there were other geopolitical goals here, as the president alluded to, because normalization between Israel and Saudi Arabia, you can see that would not be in the interest of terrorist groups like Hamas. It certainly wouldn't be in the interest of their backer in Tehran.
Do you think that's the top reason why they did it?
I can't specify specifically what the top reason. I'm not in the minds of the terrorists, but the president was certainly laying out a very real potential factor behind what they did.
Thanks, Greg. The president has spoken a lot about the work he's done in building a coalition behind Ukraine and supporting Ukraine. Are there any concerns that U.S. support for Israel and as civilian casualties rise in Gaza? Is there any concern that could undermine support for the U.S. stance on Ukraine with countries in the global south, for example, for Brazil, in Asia and Africa, who might be in terms of their views on Gaza?
Supporting both right now, both countries, is important to President Biden. That's why we submitted that supplemental funding request last week. It's important that both get the support that they need, not just from the United States, but from the international community, and we're dedicated to that outcome. We're going to stay dedicated to that.
I do know that 5 hours ago, Baytech News reposted a tweet from someone named Yanis Tawarati, urgent. Israeli military called residents of several neighborhoods in Gaza to evacuate immediately,
I'll let
saying the
members of
bombing will
Congress
intensify
speak for themselves
on
in
these
terms of how they
areas
wanna
starting at 4
move
p.m.
this supplemental request
Military
forward.
ended with this was the
We
last
submitted
call.
together because we believe all of it is important. Every dollar
I
that
wonder, I'm trying to figure out if the
is of an urgent nature.
negotiations to
and we
release those
urge
50
Congress to move
hostages that
on
we
all
talked
of that
about
as quickly as
earlier
possible.
got derailed.
With regards
So
to
they're saying,
American
okay,
hostages, you
we're
noted
gonna go
there
back
were
to bombing you
conversations
again.
and discussions with partners in the region. And on Friday, after those 2 Americans were thankfully freed, the president thanked the Israelis and Qataris for their partnership in this work. Are the Israelis or Qataris negotiating with Hamas on our behalf, and would the United States ever negotiate with Hamas in order to?
I'm not going to go into more detail about the discussion to get those Americans home. If I were to do that for you today, I might actually put at risk opportunities to get more people out, and I'm just not going to do that.
Second question, then. There's been an uptick on the right among some Republicans who have called for students or foreign nationals who are demonstrating in some of these pro-Palestine demonstrations or, allegedly pro-Hamas demonstrations to have their student visas pulled or to face deportation. What is the administration's response to those kinds of remarks and that kind of rhetoric?
I would just tell you, you don't have to agree with every sentiment that's expressed in a free country like this to stand by the First Amendment and the idea of peaceful protest. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, can you talk about the degree to which your efforts to get the supplemental funding and work on the crisis are complicated by the fact that we still don't have a speaker after all these days?
It would certainly be helpful to have a Speaker of the House. Procedurally, well, that's how you get new legislation to the floor. I'll let the House Republicans speak to their process.
The Spectator Index
and
1
what
hour
they're
ago
doing.
tweeted,
just
in, Israel's defense minister says the next stage of the war will be a deadly, multi-pronged attack by air, sea, and land.
Israel. Both chambers, by the way. We know there's a lot of bipartisan support there. The president is urging Congress to act as soon as possible.
A couple more. Go ahead, thank you, Mr. John. We've seen that the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, in his last trip to northern Israel, is threatening the whole Lebanon if Hezbollah enters the war from the north front. But you know very well that the Lebanese people has no power over writing Hezbollah's decision if he wants to enter or not. Why want to pay the whole price if a militia group like Hezbollah don't listen to us, don't listen to the government, unless you're asking a civil war, unless we're asking for the Lebanese army to interfere and stop Hezbollah from doing so. So why we need to pay the whole price based on Hezbollah's action?
I didn't understand the exact question.
As Lebanese, not pro-Hezbollah, why we need to pay the price if Hezbollah enter the war?
Why do the Lebanese people need to pay the
because
price?
Netanyahu said he's going to bring Lebanon to the Stone Age. And do you think we're all happy to see that happening in our home?
Look, we know that Hezbollah does not speak for the Lebanese people, the vast majority of the people of Lebanon. We know that, any more than Hamas doesn't speak for the aspirations of the vast majority of the Palestinians living in Gaza. We have said from the very beginning, we don't want to see any actor try to take advantage of the situation to widen or deepen the conflict, and that certainly includes Hezbollah. And that's why the president has added additional military forces to the region, and more forces will be coming in days and weeks ahead to try to deter any actor from widening or deepening this conflict. I understand the question. I don't think at this stage it's helpful to speculate about something that hasn't happened and hopefully will not happen. What I can tell you is we know we have significant national security interests in the region, and we're going to work to protect and defend those interests with additional military capability. And any actor who's beginning to think about entering in and widening or deepening this conflict ought to take a look at how seriously we're taking our responsibilities.
So adding more military, and so can we understand what is the job description for these two ships? Is it only to supply military aid for Israel, or also could be possible to enter the war if anything break in that region?
Okay, well,
just a bit of information regarding that matter.
Well, it's not two ships; it's two carrier strike groups. There's a lot of ships in a strike group.
I'm gonna pause this here for. I don't know if you remember the document from back when Bush was in office called Project for a New American Century. No, I do not. So 56 minutes ago, Faytech News reported breaking the Red Cross is on the way to receive 50 hostages held by Hamas with dual citizenship, according to I-24 at the news. Their transfer will take place in the south of the Gaza Strip as part of the understanding in order to allow the Red Cross personnel to reach the area safely. No IDF strikes were carried out in the last hours in this area. Well, I don't know. I mean, we just had some... I don't know. I don't know what to think here. Emmanuel Fabin reported on Twitter, IDF says that that in an airstrike this morning, the head of Hamas anti-tank guided missile raid in northern Gaza, Abraham al-Sakar was killed. The IDF says al-Sakar was responsible for the missile attack that killed Staff Sergeant Omar Tabib during the May 2021 war. Faytech News 5 minutes ago said... So it was a plan to invade a bunch of Middle Eastern nations, Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan, and Iran. Which of those is left? I don't know. I can't, I'm having a hard time thinking about that right now. There's a disagreement in the Israeli War Cabinet regarding the army's readiness to invade Gaza. Israel's Defense Minister Gallant and Minister Gantz believe that the IDF is ready to enter Gaza, and Netanyahu believes that more time is needed to prepare. I mean, who knows what the truth about that is. But... whatever the case may be, I have to go ahead and get off here and go because I gotta get ready for work. So, thank you for the small, loyal few who joined me today on Rumble. There was 4 of you. Thank you, Teabaggy the Therapist, for filling the chat. For your interaction. I appreciate it. God bless you. God bless America. And God bless Israel. Bye.